If you're enjoying the LP reviews, I thank you for watching. I'm going to continue it, and I'm starting to get into a stack here of LPs that I really love. These must have been the ones that I had all together because I actually listened to them pretty regularly. So the first one on this stack, I love this album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time, XTC Skylarking. When I bought this, I bought it because of the song Dear God that was on MTV at the time. It might actually be an atheistic anthem, or maybe it's an agnostic anthem, but I love that they really wrestle honestly with the problem of evil and the suffering in the world, and asking that question that sometimes we all can't help but ask: where is God, or how can God exist if such terrible things keep happening? I bought the album because of that song, and I still love that song, but the rest of the album honestly has become even dearer to me than that tune. It's funny how I don't typically consider myself a huge Beatles fan, but if music is considered Beatlesque, I always love it. XTC is a case in point. Andy Partridge, Colin Moulding, they write great songs, they're great musicians, some biting lyrics, very clever. XTC Skylarking, one of my top albums of all time. Uh, Pet Shop Boys' debut album, Please. I loved West End Girls when it came out, and I kind of liked electronic music back in the 80s, so their music, it has a sophistication to it that I've always enjoyed. And their irony, their sense of humor, that cheeky British humor, I enjoy that. That's a great album. Adam and the Ants, Prince Charming. Gosh, the cover alone is classic. Adam Ant sported a look unlike any other, and great tunes on here. Really heavy drums. I love that jungle bass drum that is part of the Adam and the Ants sound, and that punk guitar. And again, a good British sense of humor to a lot of their music, but some enduring tunes all the same. So Adam and the Ants, Prince Charming. I've mentioned this one before, Heaven 17, How Men Are. Love this album. It would be one of my favorites from the 80s, without a doubt. And I think it's my favorite of theirs. The Luxury Gap is another one that I always liked from Heaven 17. But How Men Are, it's just a consistent listen, start to finish, well produced, and great harmonies and great beats. The Fix, Shuttered Room. I've mentioned this one before too. I bought Reach the Beach first. One thing leads to another. I loved that song, but the more I got into the Fix's catalog, the more I like this album. I've mentioned before, it's just kind of a sharp, angular sound, and a strangeness, but still kind of a cool rock vibe. Jamie West Oram, I think, is a great guitarist. He's got a very distinctive sound. This is an album that when I first got it, I was so disappointed. ABC Beauty Stab. It's their sophomore release, and The Lexicon of Love is a classic of the 80s. That was their debut. Kind of a glitzy dance vibe, sort of like Roxy Music. So I expected more of the same on Beauty Stab, and it's very sharp and edgy and jarring, and much more guitar based, and it wasn't at all what I expected at the time. And I really was so disappointed in this album because I thought The Lexicon of Love was just a classic, and still is in my opinion. But it's funny, I have come to love this album. The song Love's a Dangerous Language, it was probably the most jarring song on the album, and now I just love it. This kind of dissonant electric guitar, kind of creating these stabbing sounds, and it really had a jarring effect to it. And now I just love this album. So it's funny how when you live with a record, it really can start to change your taste, or you can really just grow to appreciate what the artist was doing. Squeeze, Babylon and On. I love the song The Hourglass. But I love Squeeze. They're a great 80s band, clever, classic pop. Other songs not on this album, like Tempted and Coffee in Bed, are great songs. I saw Squeeze in Omaha last summer, and I was so pleased that they opened with Footprints. That's another song on here. And the great thing about that concert, Glenn Tilbrook just still has such an excellent voice. I didn't know he was such a great guitarist. Chris Difford, they're such a great duo, and their band had such fun energy. And they're coming again to Kansas City this summer. Hope to catch them if the concert is still on. Here is a classic, the B-52s debut album. The sound of this album, the kookiness of the lyrics, their appearance, the way they dressed, the women's bouffant hairdos, all part of the culture of the B-52s as this great party band back in the late 70s and early 80s. And I remember going to Pogo's and Daddy Joe's over in Kansas when I was at Rockhurst, and they would always play about 5 or 6 new wave songs or punk songs, and usually B-52's Rock Lobster was part of that little block of tunes. So classic album from the B-52s. Another classic album in my collection, the Thompson Twins' Into the Gap. My younger brother Steve was really into their debut album, Sidekicks, or might have been their second album actually, and that really grew on me. So I became a huge fan of Thompson Twins. Hold Me Now is on here. That's a very popular song, but Sister of Mercy, that's a song I didn't love initially on this album, and now it's one of my favorites on this album. The Gap also, I love that song. The last one, I think, is the first album I ever bought. If it isn't the first, it was the second. Foreigner's debut album. I love this album. It instantly grabbed me. I think it feels like the first time that it was the song that motivated me to buy it. But Cold as Ice, Long, Long Way from Home, great tunes on this album. Lou Gramm has an amazing voice. Mick Jones has stood the test of time, continues to tour with Foreigner, and I think even records some new music now and then. So this is a really special one for me. It might have been the second album I ever bought. I think Steve Miller, Fly Like an Eagle, was the first one I bought because some other classmates were into Steve Miller. So I decided I was into Steve Miller. But Foreigner appealed to me much more. So that's my next 10 albums. A lot of sweet ones in here, and it looks like a good stack just ahead.